Hi, this is Joseph Williams, son of John Williams, and you are watching the Nerf Herder Council.
What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Nerf Herder Council. I am your host, JT. We are live on Facebook and YouTube. We are live at those two locations every other Wednesday at 8:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to click the like button, click the subscribe button, and click that notification bell so that you get notified every time we go live. We are brought to you by Audible. Go to audibletrial.com/NHC for your 30-day trial and a free audiobook download. My suggestion for this show, go check out a book called George Lucas, A Life. It is phenomenal. I just finished listening to it on Audible. It is great. So check that one out. You can get a free copy of it, again, by going to www.audible.com, whatever the hell the link is. You know what I'm talking about. And also, don't forget, you can get customizable Nerf Herder Council swag at shop.nerfherdercouncil.com. Let me bring on my younger brother, AJ. How's it going, man?
Hey, man. Good tonight. How you been?
I am doing good. I'm kind of glad you picked the topic you picked tonight. I'm very much in a Star Wars rabbit hole right now. As I was saying in the intro before I flubbed the damn Audible link the second time. Was it last week or the week before? I finished listening to the audiobook version of a book called George Lucas, A Life. And it was awesome. It was a biography of George Lucas. It was really, really good. And I just binge watched over the last couple days a new 6-part. I don't know if it's new. It's from last year. I don't know if it just showed up on Amazon Prime, but it's called Icons Unearthed Star Wars, and it's a 6-part documentary that is mostly about the making of the original trilogy. And the first 4 are like the original trilogy era, and then the last 2 are the prequels. So I am just all kinds of full of some new knowledge and all juiced up on Star Wars. And obviously this started with you and I on what was the date of that? April 28th. We went to the theater and we saw Return of the Jedi in theaters for the first time together since the first time we ever saw a Star Wars movie together, which was May of 1983. And it was Return of the Jedi. So I'm a little hyped up on Star Wars. So thanks for picking a Star Wars topic tonight.
Yeah, all good, man. You know, it was, well, okay, we'll move on to that in just a second. I wanted to ask you about Star Wars documentary. You've seen a lot of these things now, right?
Yeah.
How much new information is there really to unearth at this point? Because you've read books, the making of and all that sort of stuff, and you're still finding new information in these things, really? It's like the Van Halen biographies. How much new information can there be when it's been covered so much?
You know, it's surprising. I'm really glad you brought up the Van Halen biographies because every time I literally there was one of the recent 2 that came out or recent 3. It's one of the very newest Van Halen biographies. The audiobook took about 10 hours to get through. It's about 10 hours long, and I counted maybe about 15 minutes worth of stuff in 10 hours that I didn't know. And there's still one that I haven't listened to or read, and I'm nervous to get it because the comments all say, oh, you get this crap in other books. But, of course, they all advertise it. Oh, new stuff you've never heard. Like, whatever. But I'm going to say this George Lucas book and especially the Star Wars Unearthed, Icons Unearthed on Amazon Prime, that one especially, there was a lot of stuff I did not know.
Really?
I mean,
That's cool.
Yeah, man. Like, I mean, we can do it now, or we could get into the topic and kind of throw it in there. But I mean, it changes the way that you look at George Lucas. It's kind of crazy how that happened. That's why I highly recommend it to any Star Wars fan that is interested in the backstories of these things. Like, there's actually a lot of new information. And
cool.
It's pretty crazy, man. So we'll talk about it at some point. I know that's not our main topic tonight, but
yeah, we get criticized for not getting into the meat of things quickly enough. So let's save that at the end. Yeah. You know, once we're done talking about the so-called Filoniverse.
Sure.
So yeah, I had this idea because if you notice behind me here, I've been rearranging and getting some stuff up on the shelves and taking some old stuff down. And I was realizing that if you go top bottom, and I try to mix it up so it's not just all Star Wars. You notice I've got like the Milano down there, and I've got my Geordie LaForge Star Trek bear, and a couple other like nerdy things back there. And still, I'm like, okay, so what have I got? I've got the Razor Crest, I've got his N1 fighter, I've got Grogu, I've got a couple of BD droids, which are now part of the shows as well, not just in the video games. I just over here built that giant Mandalorian figure. So I've got like all this stuff. It's all based on Dave Filoni properties, right? And I was thinking back, I'm like, especially with season 3 of The Mandalorian being like so tied into like other shows and past storylines and things like that, I'm realizing that basically Dave Filoni is kind of running all of Star Wars from a story standpoint at this point. Like I heard that even the Kenobi series had to be rewritten to accommodate some of the stuff that was either coming up soon for Star Wars projects or had already happened that the original writer wasn't aware of in the time frame that the Kenobi show was supposed to take place. Like originally, Maul was going to be the main villain, the main antagonist of the Kenobi series, and that was rewritten later to be Vader and the Inquisitors, because basically Dave Filoni was like, "Nah, don't use Maul." So he's got like executive powers. They voted for more executive powers to the Chancellor.
I was going to say, which one of us is going to come up with it first,
right? So he's really steering the ship, and I wanted to take a look at that and see if that's a good thing or a bad thing, because it's getting kind of like Marvel Phase 4, where, if you're not up on Rebels and the Clone Wars and some of the Bad Batch and the Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett and Tales of the Jedi and now Skeleton Crew's coming out and the Ahsoka series, like it's all connected, which Star Wars always has been, but there's a lot of material now that everything ties into, and I just wonder if that's a good thing or a bad thing. You've got the diehards that love to see all the connections and the Easter eggs, and then you've got the casuals that just don't get it. It's like when Darth Maul popped up in the end of Solo, and people are like, "What the hell? I thought he was cut in half at the end of Episode 1."
Right?
You got a couple different audiences, and I just wanted to take a look at that and see, if you like the way Star Wars is going under his watch, because he's been in it for basically 20 years now.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think, but he's been in Star Wars almost as long as Lucas was.
Yeah. Well, I think it's great. And I was really happy when you picked this topic, because having gone through the book and the documentary, like I just mentioned, it gives me a new perspective on Star Wars itself. And I will say that the reason I think the Filoni thing is good is because that guy actually is working in a collaborative manner. And the one thing that I really got out of the stuff that I just went through, the book and the documentary, is that George Lucas, when he did work collaboratively, it was almost forced on him. And when he didn't work collaboratively, it was kind of almost universally not the good Star Wars that we really like. And so I think the fact that, Filoni is kind of there. He basically is like the George Lucas now, let's face it. I mean, and not basically, he is George Lucas right now for the Disney era of Star Wars. The fact that he is not just looking for a yes man, and he's doing what George Lucas should have done, which is, I've got all these ideas and other people say, what if we went this way? Or I've got an idea and he goes, okay, that idea is better. Again, I think the word is collaborative. I think that is a huge benefit to any sort of creative endeavor. I mean, I'll liken it to writing music. Could I sit down and write a song all by myself? Yeah, but it wouldn't be nearly as good as sitting down with a bunch of dudes in a room all playing together and bouncing ideas off each other. There's more inspiration. There's more energy there that's coming out. And so it's just like that with Star Wars. So I think it's great that it's going this way personally.
Yeah, the collaborative thing is a good point, because while he is steering the ship and he's the main guy behind the story and everything, you still got not Dave Filoni, that's the guy we're talking about, Jon Favreau. Jon Favreau, those two are kind of like heading everything, but let's face it, all the stuff that they're writing ties back to what Dave Filoni created before. And I know like everyone wants to play with their own toys. Like Dave should be proud. I mean, younger fans don't even realize that Ahsoka wasn't ever in the plans until, 20 some years ago.
Yeah.
In fact, about exactly 20 years ago is when development started on the Clone Wars series. So she just fits right in, and she was a total afterthought that never existed in the moviescape before. But if you didn't watch Clone Wars or didn't watch Rebels, do you end up a little bit lost? I mean, I'm trying to think of anything Filoni's made that you haven't seen, for example.
A lot of the Clone Wars.
A lot of the Clone Wars. You got all the way through Rebels eventually, right?
Yes, I did not get through much of Resistance.
Okay. Yeah, that one doesn't tie in yet because I think that takes place later in the timeline than like the Mando shows do.
Okay. Yeah,
But,
I've seen obviously all the Bad Batch, all the Mando, all the live action stuff I've seen all of. So really, it's only just most of the Clone Wars series that I haven't seen, but I'm at least familiar with it enough. So, I mean, speaking of collaboration, Kale, good to see you, by the way, buddy. He says, I wonder how much Favreau really brings up. He says, like, it feels very in line with Filoni's solo work, so I wonder if Favreau handles more of the business side of things with Filoni or how much he really brings up.
That's a really good point.
Well, you know what I think it is that, and I'm gonna give Kathleen Kennedy a ton of credit in this as well. By the way, I hate the way she gets shit on, and we've said on the show before.
We're not allowed to do that. We're not allowed to give her praise.
I know. Well, if it wasn't for Kathleen Kennedy, we wouldn't have Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau running the show. So, yeah, I think what it is they've kind of gotten in this groove of hiring directors and creators who are not necessarily from the Star Wars universe, but they're extremely talented at what they do, and they're huge fans of Star Wars, so they have skin in the game. So, it's kind of like, I learned that George Lucas's original director of choice for Return of the Jedi was David Lynch, who does really weird stuff. Like, what the hell would that have been like? I mean, come on. Whereas, you've got guys, people like Rick Fumiyama and Bryce Dallas Howard and Deborah Chow and things like that. And, like Deborah Chow did some kick-ass episodes of The Mandalorian. So then they're like, you know what? Do all of Obi-Wan for us. It's like a merit-based thing, and I think they've gotten in a really good groove of that. And I think that it started with Jon Favreau, Kale. I really think it did because you've got Filoni in there. They bring in Jon Favreau, who obviously knows his stuff, and it was so good. And the popularity was going to be there no matter what, but the quality of what they were doing in terms of the writing was so strong that they were open-minded enough to say, okay, let's get some other people to do this too and recreate this formula. And that works. So they're in this great groove of doing that. So I really think that, Favreau actually does have a pretty big influence on this stuff. I really think Filoni's there as he is one of the idea generators, but I think he's kind of like the Pablo Hidalgo too. When he was doing the Clone Wars and he would ask George Lucas, well, does this feel enough Star Wars? I think he's now in that role. He's giving the ideas, and then people are asking him, like, is this enough Star Wars? And he may come out and go, well, we have to do it this way because of this, that, and the other, So that's where I think, the Favreau-Filoni relationship is, and I think that's bled into the relationships with other directors.
Yeah, I wonder how much has been mapped out for The Mandalorian ahead of time, or if it was just like one season, and we'll see how it goes, and then they wrote season 2 and then season 3. Because the thing about Mandalorian that was so refreshing was that it was a clean slate, right? Like, it was a character that we'd never heard of in a time period we'd never seen, which was all fantastic, and it was all very separate and very easy to consume then as a result. Like, it was an adventure of the week sort of thing, and then we talked about that too. It was great to not have all that baggage of like the entire 9 movies and everything else in cartoons. It's just like, oh, here's a new Star Wars story. It fits in, but it doesn't connect So you can just get into it. Everyone was. That was a cool thing, actually, if you think about it at the time. Like, even us diehards were coming into it with no more knowledge than anybody else.
Yeah.
You know, dude walks onto the screen, and we're like, I don't know who this guy is either. It was great.
Yeah.
We got to really, like, be all have the same experience at once. But if you notice, like, I don't know how much Filoni was involved in that first season, because once he really came on board and was publicized as being, like, 1A, 1B with Favreau, then you get season 2, and here comes Bo-Katan and Boba Fett. And then season 3, it's like definitely all connected to like Rebels and stuff like that. So do you think that maybe Filoni's influence has grown over the seasons on Mandalorian?
Yeah, I think so. If you remember, one of the things that we said was our absolute favorite thing about the first season of Mando was that, people that weren't huge super nerds like us could get into it. But then there's stuff for us super nerds that's in there too. Like there's so many little Easter eggs all over the place. But it was able to be followed by, people that didn't necessarily have to be complete and utter insane, Star Wars fans. So yeah, I mean, sorry, drinking pop, had to burp. Yeah, I definitely think so, because you started to see that, you start getting more of that, Clone Wars influence, and now you're seeing it's like, okay, everyone's joking like, oh, it's live action Rebels or live action Clone Wars, whatever. So yeah, I definitely think so, but I think that's a product of, the first season of Mando was kind of like a grand experiment. It was like, okay, can we pull off this live action thing? Are people going to dig it? And it was so enormously popular, and the ratings and the numbers it did were so big that I think they really saw an opportunity to, use it to springboard the rest of what's come after.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point. They do seem to be easing people into the idea of this larger, more connected universe. So it might have been the plan the whole time. I don't know. To start out small. And this is like Filoni to a T, though, isn't it? Like every animated show is kind of the same way, where they start off with their own concept. He said it much in Rebels, for example, where they're starting off with this kind of Rebels, and everyone's like, "Where's Ahsoka? Where's Ahsoka? Where's Ahsoka? Where's Rex? Where's all those Clone Wars characters?" And he's like,
"Yeah,
we're telling a different story, and we purposely didn't bring them until later." Until you were invested in the new characters, because we didn't want the quote legacy characters to overshadow the new ones that we're trying to introduce here. So instead of just making it the Ahsoka show, they're like, no, we're following Ezra and Sabine and Hera and Chopper and all them, and then Ahsoka just kind of pops in every so often, so you don't get drowned in like Clone Wars Part 2.
Yeah,
which is a good like onboarding, right? And some people like that. Some people like coming into the like Mandalorian, for example, and then as these other legacy characters show up, then they're like, oh, there's an entire cartoon series about these people. I can go back and watch like dozens of hours of adventures with other character if I want to. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's a cool way to go. I don't know. I mean, you've had the experience with Marvel, for example, where you go to see the movies, but you're not up on all the Disney Plus shows. Do you get annoyed feeling like you're missing out on something because it's not on the big screen and you have to go back and watch a streaming series to fill in the blanks?
I don't feel like I'm lost. I mean, but I also feel like maybe I'm not educated enough to know if I'm lost. It's to me, it's like it's Kang. They're all gonna have to fight Kang, and they're all in the multiverse. So it's like that's a hard one, dude. Because as we said before, like that's just so goddamn weird. That it's like, I mean, does it really matter what happened on the television series? It's just there's a million universes. Okay, what? So what? To me, what it's almost like whatever happens in the movie is the official stuff, and whatever's on whatever's on TV is like whatever.
Is Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, because Wanda shows up and she's a Scarlet Witch, and it's like, well, when the hell did that happen?
Yeah.
Oh, it happened on WandaVision. Spoiler, sorry, that's the end.
Well, I saw that. I got through WandaVision, unfortunately.
You couldn't please anybody with that one, by the way, because she becomes the Scarlet Witch, which is a major thing, and that happens in a TV show. So when she pops up that way in the movie, you're like, what the hell? If you didn't see the show, and if you did see the show, you saw that she actually like recanted at the end. So then why is she back to being evil and pursuing her kids and in the movie. Like, so if you saw it, it doesn't make sense the way she behaved in the movie, and if you didn't see it, it doesn't make sense that she is that character in the movie. So it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. And I feel like Star Wars could be getting like that too, where we talked about, Grogu and Din reuniting on Book Boba Fett. So if you didn't watch that show, all of a sudden the cliffhanger from season 2 is resolved before season 3 even hits the air, and you're like, what? When did that happen?
Yeah.
So it really is leaning hard into, you better see everything because you might miss a plot point otherwise.
Yeah, I think people like.
I guess the question is, when does it become required viewing, and when does it become just Easter egg?
Well, it's easier to digest all the Star Wars stuff because, it's based off of the 9 movies, but those already happened. It's not like you're getting 2 movies a year and 3 TV shows a year. It's where I mean, I'll be honest. I loved, the Infinity Saga, but when they're like, all right, let's keep going. Now there's this other bag. I'm like, I'm a little burned out of this, dude. Like, especially when they're bringing in characters I don't know or give a shit about. At least, every single one of the main characters in the Infinity Saga I knew. I know Captain America. I know Hawkeye. I know, Black Widow. I know the Hulk. I know Thanos. Okay, so I get that. Mm-hmm. But, man, I think with Star Wars it's different because, you don't have to. You're not being pounded with all this stuff. Like, I feel like I had to go. Basically, I would have had to watch like 3 shows. Like back to back to back to back, and like multiple episodes a week. I'm just like, God damn it! It's too much to commit to. So, with Star Wars, it's okay. Well, we just got done with Mando. Well, what's the next live action thing? It's what, Ahsoka later this year or something. Like, you've got time to wait, time to build it up, and so you don't mind watching everything because it's you get it in small chunks. It's not this flood. So I think they're definitely doing it right, and I think people are watching everything, at least in the live action. And I think it's and the only thing that's difficult is the Clone Wars, because I think I'm a perfect example. I didn't get all the way through it, and I think if people find out there's a ton of Clone Wars stuff and they're going, "What's Clone Wars?" and people like you and I go, "Oh, there's 7 seasons." You have to get through like 140 episodes to get through the whole damn thing. People are going to go, huh? I'm not doing that. Especially when you tell them it's a cartoon. And especially when they start out and it's these little chunks that don't go in frickin' order. It's, but other than that, I mean, you can get through Rebels. I mean, it's shorter. It's only 4 seasons. I think it's more digestible and it's linear. So yeah, I think it's fine with the way they're doing it because they're not flooding us with stuff. So I think it's fine.
That's true. I think Kale brings up a good question here, though. He says, which one, Favreau or Filoni, pushed for all sequel stuff last season in The Mandalorian? Best guess? Do you have it? Because we know that the cloning stuff is a big point of Bad Batch, for example. So we've got animated stuff and live action stuff touching on the same topics at different points in the timeline. Do you think that's good, or is that, again, like you were talking about, overwhelming because you've got, well, you better watch the cartoon if you want the live action to make sense?
I have nothing to base this on, but I think it is an ego-driven decision on maybe not only their parts or multiple people, but people working on this stuff. And I can't say ego like, they're walking around with their dicks in their hands or something like that, but I think that the fan cred and is so built up, like they've got so many brownie points now that they can start doing things. I really think that what they're trying to do is, they pay attention to the fans. We if we know nothing else about them, they listen to the fans. Mm-hmm. And I really think what they're trying to do is start putting stuff in there that makes the sequel trilogy better in people's eyes, especially The Rise of Skywalker. I really honestly believe that. Because
I feel the same.
Yeah, I mean, dude, like, remember how the prequels, just everybody friggin' hated them? Episodes 1 and 2 came out, people are like, they're total shit. Revenge of the Sith, like, people mostly dug that one, and then there are people like me who just absolutely were in love with it from Jump Street. But it took, 15, 20 years for those things to like get, the haze of nostalgia on them for them to be accepted. And to have your 20th anniversary of, Phantom Menace panel at Celebration and Ahmed Best be welcomed back with open arms and everyone saying, oh, now that I watch it, it's great. And I don't think they want to wait that long. And I think that the sequel trilogy is so maligned that if they can actually write stuff that makes people watch those movies and go, okay, now this makes sense and makes them good films, I mean, that's like having a blank check. So I think that's where it's coming from.
Yeah, I think, like you said, Clone Wars kind of did that for the prequels, right? Like they fleshed out all the stuff between episode 2 and 3. And it was a beloved series, and we got Ahsoka out of it, and it was fantastic. I don't know if it's ego on the part of Dave Filoni to think that he can fix all this stuff, or if it's just something maybe from Kathleen Kennedy or Disney at large that's going like, we need to save face on this stuff, so please write some material that will make this make sense and redeem these movies, especially because just announced they're doing another picture with Daisy Ridley. So I feel like if they want to move forward, with any of the characters from the sequels, they have to improve people's opinion of those movies first before anyone, so they think, anyone will sign on to actually get into any future stories with those characters.
Well,
so
and
but it does seem very coincidental that the last movie that came out was, Rise of Skywalker, and it's not well received. And then everything that they've done on TV since then has tied into the plot points that no one liked from Rise of Skywalker. Like, that's a big swing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, dude, and let's just face it. It's not they're not doing a new movie with Daisy Ridley. They're doing episodes 10, 11, and 12, okay? Nothing is going to take me off of that until it's absolutely proven to be false. Nothing. Nothing is ever going to change my mind on that. You don't bring Rey back and just go, here's a movie. You can't do it. You cannot do it.
Once they hung the Skywalker saga moniker on all the episode movies and they made her a Skywalker, by their own logic, then the next movie with Rey Skywalker must be a Skywalker saga movie.
Yeah.
And they're not going to break the pattern of well, here's episode 10, but there is no 11 or 12. Bullshit.
Yep.
It's like,
yeah. Well, and I mean,
we know better. Come on now.
And if she, the whole thing is like her character arc, we already know is that she's reestablishing the Jedi Order. What, you're just going to show that or something in one movie and then roll credits? Like, no. There's no way.
And the universe lived happily ever after.
Yeah. I mean, seriously. If you want to print money, all you have to do is make an official announcement. Star Wars official announcement at StarWars.com. Daisy Ridley returns for episodes 10, 11, and 12, where Rey reestablishes the Jedi Order. Movies written and produced and directed by Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. Everyone is immediately on board.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and back to the Filoniverse thing, it's because of what they've done with this. How many times have we said on this show and texted about it during watch-alongs of episodes going, I can't believe how good the writing on this stuff is. The way that they just get right up against the line where they could possibly tumble over and make it cheesy, and it doesn't get there. It's just awesome. It's incredible. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, they've got all the trust in the bank where I'm concerned, and I never thought I would say that, honestly. With Dave Filoni, I really didn't, because the Clone Wars didn't grab me. For everybody who, like, you're a huge Clone Wars guy, so I'm sure when you heard that Filoni was doing all this stuff, you're probably like, hell yeah, I love Dave Filoni. Whereas I was like, that dude wrote like 120 episodes of a cartoon, and none of the shit was in linear order. Who does that? What kind of psycho shit is that?
I still wonder what the hell that was.
It's
I
can tell you what it was. It was
They're
fucking
like, okay,
dumb.
what stories can we afford to tell? Okay, now we got more money. Now we can afford to tell that story. I don't know.
Ugh. Yeah, I
Because
like
it
I
did
can
level
tell you
out.
it was fucking dumb. That was weird, and I wasn't sure. And now Dave Filoni can pretty much do no wrong in my eyes. Like, I walk into everything his name is attached to, and I go, yeah, okay. Like, I'll give
Benefit
this a
of the
shot.
doubt, right?
Yeah. I mean, the guy has not steered me wrong at all. And
Maybe they're learning from their mistakes, you know? Like, the way the original trilogy worked and is still the most beloved thing of Star Wars is, you know, George did the first one, and he was executive producer on Empire and Jedi. And he got different directors, but he was still guiding the ship, right? Maybe that's the new model. Maybe Filoni and Favreau, you know, they kick this thing off, or at least they're EPs on episode 10, let's call it, with Rey. So they're the guiding hand, especially Filoni, because he was trained directly by George Lucas. So maybe they're going back to the OT model of, let's keep the same producers in place that we really trust to keep this on brand, and then we'll let the directors play, but only at producer's discretion.
Well, this ties into the George Lucas stuff I was talking about at the beginning, the book and the documentary, because what kept the original trilogy on the rails was that collaborative spirit. And basically what happened was, I will really make this very simple. Basically what happened was George Lucas wrote a ton of stuff, and people were there to tell him this is a really crappy idea. This is a really crappy idea. So he had a stop break, and you know, people were like, "Hey, maybe you shouldn't do that." But the person who really drove it, and I never knew this. This was why it was so fascinating. The documentary, it wasn't harped on as much in the book. It was harped on pretty reasonably, but not like in the documentary. The documentary might as well be a love letter to Marsha Lucas. And I never knew it, but they have all these other guys doing all these interviews because you know that she was brought in as an editor on episode 4, and then she basically
saved that thing.
Well, she basically saved Jedi too, and so Lucas would put together these cuts, and she would go, well, there's no emotion here. She would like redo his cuts because she said it was just a collection of special effects, and there was no like story, like there's no emotion to it.
I'm sorry, it's funny because all that stuff are the criticisms of the prequels. Like, was she not involved in those?
Yes, she was not. No, dude. Okay, look.
All right, we need Marsha back. Can we get her?
I'm telling you, no, they got divorced during the making of Jedi, and when they were going through their divorce, he needed so much help with the editing that he actually asked her to come and finish out the movie, and she did. While they're working out their divorce, so that's a real thing. And in the prequels, the book and the documentary both say that Rick McCallum, that he like we all surmised and everyone's accused him of for years, he was a yes man. He didn't step in and say, well, maybe that's a bad idea. Maybe you shouldn't do this. It was, okay, George wants this. How can I make it happen? He would never say, okay, that's a crap idea.
He said that in interviews. He's like, my job is to make George Lucas's vision happen.
Yeah. Whereas what he
not
had
to a foil or a buffer. Yeah.
Yeah. And what George Lucas had for the original trilogy was people telling him no. And it made better movies. I mean, dude, it's crazy. Like the Marsha Lucas thing, I it was mentioned quite a bit in the book. I was like, wow, I never knew that. But then in the documentary, she was like basically the subject pretty much, almost like the savior of Star Wars for like the first 3 or 4 episodes of the 6. And to the point where they talk at the end that there's some Star Wars book, like the Star Wars Encyclopedia or something, and when it came out, she looked in the credits, like the thing in the I'm drawing a blank. The
index table of contents. I don't know.
So she looks in the index in the back for Marsha Lucas. She was on one page of the Star Wars Encyclopedia, and it was Marsha Lucas was an assistant editor for Star Wars. A sentence on one page, and she was his ex-wife, and she saved. Dude, apparently he was so butthurt about their divorce that he basically has erased her from all existence in Star Wars, in his own life. They haven't spoken since the divorce. They haven't seen when their daughter got married, he wouldn't even approach her, say congratulations, nothing. Didn't even look. I mean, he fucking is so butthurt about her, but yeah, she made it go, and it was obvious, and everyone talks about it in the documentary, and I think that's what they have in the Filoniverse, and I think that's what they're doing right, and I think you're spot on. That's a very long-winded way of saying yes. I think you're spot on when you say that they bounce things off of each other and they learned from previous mistakes, that George Lucas made. And I think with the sequel trilogy, I think they learned from those mistakes too, where you have this huge story you have to tell, but they have one guy write part and another guy's like, I feel like doing this. Like, well, that doesn't have any cohesiveness to it. And if you notice what they have in these live action television shows, they're cohesive. They stick together. They flow perfectly. So I think your point is super, super spot on. I think, yes, they're very much looking at past failures and going, all right, let's not do that. Let's look at what worked and how we work well together and go down that road.
Yeah. I still come back to that thing where Grogu and Din Djarin come back together in the Book of Boba Fett, though, where it might be too much of a good thing. I don't think that was the way to do that. To resolve a season cliffhanger in another show, like that was not the way to handle that, I don't think. But that's one of those things where you're telling, like, same people writing the stories, so to them it makes perfect sense. They don't see it as an oddball thing to do. And they have defended it in interviews, like this was their plan, but it doesn't mean it was the right decision. You know, like, you got to let these things stand on their own 2 feet. And they have to exist by themselves and make sense. Even the Marvel movies have done a good job of that, where if there's a certain plot point that happens in another movie, they will at least flesh it out for you enough in the next, like, say, like, like in the Thor movies or something, where everything happens to him and then, like, he's in Guardians of the Galaxy, or the Guardians of the Galaxy are with him from Endgame or whatever. They did a good enough job of, like, tying that up and cluing in anybody who didn't see the thing that plot thread was resolved in. Yeah. And in Mandalorian Season 3, it's just, here's Din and Grogu again. No mention of, he was training with Luke, but he came back because of this stuff that happened in Mos Pelgo and or Mos Eisley. I don't even remember. I haven't gone back and rewatched Book of Boba Fett.
All right.
So it's mostly lure.
Nice.
But yeah, so they just moved along with Season 3, never mentioning why the hell Grogu's back. I thought that was a bit weird. So I don't know. If you're doing 10, 11, and 12, I assume that they're going to have 10, 11, and 12 written overall. Like George had. He had a rough outline. He didn't have all the details because it was still an evolving story based on how things went. But I hope they at least have the outline right, and then the different directors can put their spin on it, and Dave and John can come by and be like, yes, no.
Okay. Kale says, I'd rather have Mando be off his game on Tatooine and show that he's not right without Grogu, then do his reunion as the first section of Season 3. I'm going to disagree with both you guys, and the reasoning is pretty simple. I think they have a bigger story to tell than, the reunion of Grogu and Mando. I think had this stayed on track like Season 1, where it literally was just focused on Mando and Grogu, and that's the sole story, I think you definitely do that. But I think that what they're doing right now, obviously, is part of something much, much bigger. They already came out and said that they're going to be doing a movie that ties everything that's going on right now together. So you've got this enormous movie like that you're going to pull off. You've got bigger things to tell than the cute little, oh, Grogu, I missed you story. You know what I mean? It's emotional. It's cool. And I think you needed to see it, but I think they now have bigger fish to fry. So I think the popularity of the show and the size of the stories they started getting into kind of killed that, I think. Oh, Kale brings up a point right there. That's an interesting question for you too. He says, "Can we get back to the smaller story? Feels massively distracted as of late." What do you think about that, AJ? Because I don't disagree, but I'm on the fence on that one.
Yeah, I've heard this take a lot around the internet. I watch a channel called Screen Crush, and they did a whole episode about this. It was like a 30-minute podcast. And I kind of agree. Like, the last season of The Mandalorian, it felt almost like The Mandalorian was a supporting character and it was more the Bo-Katan story.
Okay.
Or the Mandalorian's story as a culture. Yeah. And same. Like, if I'm going to go back and rewatch The Mandalorian at this point, I like season 1. I like it was just simple. It was one dude and Grogu. Season 2 got somewhat away from that, but it was okay. It was still pretty small. But season 3, the scope just went huge and kind of like lost the main characters of the show in the larger narrative. Mm-hmm. And I like that now they kind of hit the reset button at the end, right? Where now they're just bounty hunters for the New Republic, basically. Yeah. So it kind of does get back to that season 1 feel, I hope. Because I like it when it was more accessible and didn't have quite so much baggage surrounding it. And I found myself the whole season wishing I had more time with just Mando and Grogu and not so much like, well, God damn it, here's more Bo-Katan. Okay, fine. I guess we're doing the Bo-Katan show this week. What about you?
Yeah, I think it loses some of the emotional weight when it's not just focused on Mando and Grogu. Again, I think what they realized is that they have an opportunity to kind of, I don't want to say resurrect because it was already with all the stuff that's out there. Like, Star Wars is quote unquote back or whatever. But, because the sequel trilogy caught so much crap and now Mando, like everyone's watching, I think they saw this opportunity to kind of get back in the fans' good graces and start building this thing back up into this juggernaut, and write stuff that solely is praised by fans. So I just think that it's a byproduct of the show's success is kind of the way that I see it.
It's true.
So
how do you feel about the so-called Filoniverse, where because the show is so successful, now they're pulling from past projects that Dave specifically has spearheaded and bringing those elements forward? That's why we get live-action Cad Bane, live-action Ahsoka, live-action Hera and Sabine, and Ezra and Thrawn and all this other stuff from the animated stuff. Do you like that, or do you feel like the animated characters don't play right in the live-action sandbox? Because people have criticized, like, sometimes they stick too true to the animated designs, and it looks weird in live action, and sometimes they stray too far from the animated designs, and it looks weird as well. So where do you come down on that? Do you like the animated characters being brought to live action?
Yeah, I do. I mean, could it be considered overkill? Yeah, I get that. But I think those characters are popular enough that again, it's a resurgence. Because when you say, okay, where the hell did Ahsoka come from? People that haven't seen Rebels or the Clone Wars are going to go back and watch that now. Well, who the hell is Sabine Wren? Who's Thrawn? Whatever. And people are going to go looking for this other stuff. So it's kind of a business decision in a way, but it's also a way to like bring in, make sure that fans of those shows feel like they're being represented. Like, this is the stuff they like, so we're going to show you this. Yeah, I don't have a problem with it, because I think they do a good job of representing a number of different eras in Star Wars, and I think it brings some familiarity to it. Like, you've got your new characters coming in, which is cool, but I think you need those legacy characters to kind of ground you. I mean, I cannot get into the High Republic because I know Yoda's in there, but I don't know when or where, because I'm just like, I don't give a shit about these new characters. I'm like, who the hell are you? It's it's like 500 years before the movies I know. Okay, so what the hell do I care? And it's I wish I could, because I am so envious of all these like hardcore fans that know all this stuff and they know all the High Republic stuff. But I'm like, it just I'm not it doesn't grab me. I like having something that I know. And I think Filoni does a great job of that. And even to the point where they gave us the story of Kenobi. He didn't come up with Obi-Wan Kenobi, but the story was written for a movie, and they knew fans would dig it, and it does explain some backstory that we didn't have. So they he did that. Andor is a perfect example. I don't know if he had anything to do with Andor, but he's like, hey, people love Rogue One, let's tell this story. So I think it's cool, and I have to admit, as much as I'm not a Rebels fan, it'll be kind of cool to see those people on screen, because you're like, holy crap. I just think it's cool when they can pull that off. And I felt the same way about the Marvel movies, because they were just like really vibrant drawings on a page, and you're like, man, what if that was in the real world? And then you see it in the real world, you're like, holy shit. Like, so to me, these characters are basically a comic book come to life, because it was just a cartoon before. So I kind of like it. Even if I wasn't a fan of the character or the show that they came from, I think it's cool, man. I like it. I like it.
Yeah, I think the jump from animation to live action is always, or vice versa, is always tricky, right? Like you're saying from the start that one of the problems you had with Clone Wars was the art style. Like,
yeah,
it was super stylized, and it did look weird. I mean, you compare you compare Dooku in live action to Dooku in Clone Wars. Like, okay, I get that that's kind of like a theme park caricature of the guy, but it's hard to get into as a result. And I see where it's difficult in both directions, because you can get with stuff in animation that you just can't in live action. So sometimes those animated characters just look a little weird. Even Bo-Katan, I mean, she's played by the same actress who did the voice for the cartoon character anyway, but even that red wig, I'm like, and the little like light up bits in her headband, like are above us in the wallpaper there.
Mm-hmm.
They work in animation, and every time I see it in live action, I'm like, I don't know about that. And then people were bitching about the way Cad Bane looked, because apparently Duros shouldn't look like that. I'm like, it's fine.
Can we just real quick? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm going to say this. You say it's a little. Can we just say that if you're one of those people that thinks that Cad Bane didn't look cool in live action, that you're a fucking idiot. No offense. I love you, but you're a fucking idiot, because it looked amazing. So anyways, go ahead. It was a little. I had to get that out while it was on my mind. It's very important. Cad Bane rules.
Yeah, no. But there were some modifications to the design, because if they just took straight Clone Wars design and put it on next to a live action human being, it would have looked even weirder. It still looked a little weird. But we never actually saw any one of that species speak in the cantina scene in A New Hope. So who knows? That is like what they would have looked like if they were talking and had like proper CG, makeup and stuff like that.
Yep.
So I get the same. I'm still having a problem with Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka. Actually, I think she's doing a great job, but it's just jarring as hell, because I'm so used to hearing Ashley Eckstein. And even when Solo came out, they got Ray Park to do the body, but they still got Sam Witwer from the cartoon to do the voice.
Yeah.
So I was really expecting something more like that, but I get how, on a TV budget, you can't possibly do overdubs like that for every single line. It's a limitation of the medium, but I've also heard complaints because, when they tried to bring Luke Skywalker in, it didn't look right. But it was like, holy shit, it's a movie character. And now all the throwbacks are from the cartoons and not from live action. Mm-hmm. So, it doesn't matter which way they go. It seems like they're going to piss somebody off. So I don't know how you, thread that needle and get just enough of the live action people back in so it feels connected, instead of just feeling basically every new Disney movie that Jon Favreau has done, where, it's just the cartoons from the 90s being redone in live action, like Lion King, Little Mermaid, Aladdin, Ron.
Right.
It's like, okay, fine. So I guess the new live action series from Disney Plus, Star Wars, are just Rebels in live action, Clone Wars in live action, blah, 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 blah. But I mean, I'll tell you what, one of the best ones that translated, though, was not even a Dave Filoni invention. It was Black Chrysanthemum. I think Black Chrysanthemum in Book of Boba Fett was amazing. And he came in from the Dr. Aphra comic. He was nowhere in the animated stuff. Yeah. So, I mean, they can pull from all sources. I think they've got to be a little more careful about how to blend them. Especially because, like Kale said, we're kind of losing the main characters of the Mandalorian show in particular, because we're focusing. I think they should do something more. What do you think about something like the Netflix Marvel shows, where they had, Daredevil and Luke Cage and Iron Fist and Jessica Jones all culminating in the Defenders? That felt like more kind of the recipe to me, where they were all playing in the same area, but they had their own shows, and they remained the focus of their own shows until that culmination. And it feels like this movie that they're building to is a great place for it to culminate, but season 3 of Mandalorian might have been a little too far in mixing all the ingredients together. What do you think?
I'm going to disagree, because to your question about Jessica Jones and Luke Cage and all that, I'm going to go, who? Again, I can't keep up with all this Marvel shit. And mostly because it just doesn't matter. And if it does matter, then what they're going to have is a million different multiverses and 1,000 different Kangs, and there's going to be a team of 8,428 Marvel characters teaming up to fight them, and 3 guys are going to go after Kang number 372, and 11 of them are going to go after Kang number 475 because that guy had an A-bomb, and he was he was like the Oppenheimer of fucking Marvel. Like just stop it. I don't care. I mean, it's that stuff is like throwing it out there because they had a bunch of fan cred built up. They could get, everyone loved the Infinity Saga. Now it's just way too much. Like, no one gives a shit about Luke Cage. No one gives a shit about Jessica Jones. I mean, just stop it. And Daredevil's one of my favorite characters. I didn't watch the Daredevil series. I was just like, it's overkill. And with Star Wars, I think they're giving us enough. And it's not.
You have got to do yourself a favor and watch the Daredevil series. It is amazing.
I'll try.
You can skip the others. You can skip the others, but the Daredevil show is awesome.
Look, I'll get back to that in a second. Kale says, problem for JT, those space whales will have to reappear for Ahsoka to explain where Thrawn and Ezra have been. Sorry, man. Oh, don't worry. We're thinking about doing live reaction episodes like me, like actually watching the episode and reacting, so that whenever those goddamn things come out, it's gonna be real. It's gonna be an immediate reaction, because I'm going to lose it.
Remember in the Last Jedi era where we Porg watch? We're gonna do Purgle watch.
Yes, yes, Purgle watch, Purgle watch. Get out here, Purgle jerk! You're making me look stupid.
I was just thinking about that.
Yeah. But yeah, I think
Fontana, Purgle watch.
But yeah, no, I think Star Wars is giving us enough content to keep it interesting and keep it something where people want to watch. There's anticipation, whereas Marvel, it's just there's way too much. And I mean, this She-Hulk crap that everyone was all about. I'm like, who cares? What the hell is that? What the shit do I give? Like, oh look, now the Hulk is a comedy star. Like what? Huh? Like, She-Hulk is a lawyer. Like, I get it's supposed to be a parody or some goofy thing. Like, but why the fuck do I care about that? Like, just stop it. Put your efforts into something that I actually give a shit about. Like, I don't know, writing a movie where the goddamn multiverse goes away and there's a Kang. How about that? How about that?
I feel like you've got 2 triggers now. You've got multiverse and Purgles on the brain.
Because it's just
we're supposed to be talking Star Wars, and you're just ranting on Phase 4 of the MCU here.
Well, it's crap. And dude, like, we have to go see Guardians, and everyone says the third Guardians is amazing, and I'm nervous. They've officially made me nervous to go watch that shit, because if I got to see another special effects dump, and see some stupid blubber star guy with googly eyes, running around in some weird version of space, I'm gonna scream. Like,
Blubbery
it's just
star
dumb.
guy. Are you referencing the last Suicide Squad movie?
No, that fucking the thing that looked like Patrick from SpongeBob in the Ant-Man movie. That goofy, like, gelatinous.
Oh.
Like,
okay, got it.
Whoever. It's like, seriously now? You know what that reminded me of? Claude in The Rise of Skywalker. That stupid yellow blob where they just run past in the Falcon. Hey, Claude, fix that. You know what I want? I want an edit of that movie where he kind of looks up and down and goes, with what fucking arms?
Yeah.
Like, what the hell is that?
Is that an in-joke? Did someone lose a bet on that? This whole, like, the ship's engineer, he's got no arms.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck is that?
What is his job? Like, if they blow a hole in the side of the ship, he just goes and plugs it? What is he, intergalactic Bondo? Like, what the hell is that?
Yeah, JJ saw the scene from the start of Last Jedi where BB-8 just, like, smashes his head into the circuit board to plug all the,
exactly.
the leaks. He's like, I can make a whole alien out of that.
Next thing you know, instead of naming, first of all, Claude, are you kidding me? And they spelled it like Klaude or something. Why don't they just name him Flex Tape, but spell it like FFLEXSTAYPP? Just call him Flex Tape, but it's spelled all wonky. So it's intergalactic. Like, stop it. But anyway, I mean,
Yeah.
back on topic. No, I think Marvel's doing it wrong, and I think Star Wars is doing it right. So
Okay, so let's look at the upcoming projects. So you've got Ahsoka coming up, and we've already been confirmed that basically all the surviving Rebels crew are going to be in it. Are you down with that? And what about Skeleton Crew, where it's also going to take place in the same time frame? So I'm guessing that those events will also tie in.
Skeleton Crew makes me nervous because I don't really give a crap about the concept. It's a Jedi. It's a Jedi looking around for 4 kids in the woods. It's like Obi-Wan Kenobi hunting for Stand By Me. So like
I feel like the original trilogy movies might have kind of torpedoed the franchise long term in a little bit too, because we were led to believe that there's like only a couple of Jedi left because Obi-Wan said there was nobody left, and Yoda said that Luke was going to be the last one, and now we're like, well, there's Cal Kestis and there's Ahsoka, but she's not actually a Jedi, and Luke kind of survived, but he cut himself off from the Force, so that's how he didn't get hunted down, and they just keep inventing new Jedi that survived Order 66, and we're like,
right.
I thought they were all dead, and Yoda had track of all of them. So if he says they're gone, they're gone.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll find out who Jude Law's character is in Skeleton Crew. Again, for some reason, the first thing I pictured when they're like, yeah, it's a Jedi looking for 4 kids lost in the woods, I'm like, that's just Stand By Me with a Jedi. Like, I picture him coming across a clearing, and all of a sudden you hear this, I was 11 years old when I saw my first dead body. God damn it! Are you kidding me? When's the train coming? It's going to be a space train. Oh, no.
It's going to be the Purgles. It's going to be a hyperspace lane of Purgles.
No, it's going to be a conveyax. It's going to be a conveyax. They're going to be walking along a conveyax. Like, oh my God, there's a Stand By Me reference. Man, you could tell we're old. Anyway, but that's one of my favorite Stephen King novellas and movies. So anyway, yeah, Skeleton Crew, we'll see. I will trust them because they haven't steered me wrong yet. Ahsoka, well, I have to assume it's going to be cool. So unless they really crap the bed with that,
they haven't
obviously
said anything one way or the other about the whole Rangers of the New Republic show. Is that not happening now, or are they just shifting the focus away from Cara Dune?
I would have to assume they just assumed that the silence would say it for them, like that line in Artie Lang's Beer League.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, you'd have to like.
You say we're not doing the show anymore? No, I thought the silence would say it for me.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I mean, they've got Acolyte coming and stuff like that. I just think I'm repeating myself, but I think I trust them. So whereas Skeleton Crew has me a little worried, I think the other shows are going to be cool. You still have to see. I mean, we know we're going to see Thrawn in live action finally, which is what everybody's been wanting. Eventually, you're going to get Cal Kestis in live action. There's no way that they can avoid that because everyone loved Jedi Fallen Order and Survivor so far, and I'm not that far into it because I play in little chunks. I haven't had time to sit down for like an entire day and just binge the thing. Mm-hmm. It might be even better. I mean, it's just so unbelievably good. And, they've already got the actor, so it's not, they're not going to recast him. So, I mean, they've got all this cool stuff coming up, and I think they're doing it right. And again, I think with them appearing to be trying to make sense of the sequel trilogy and especially Episode 9, I think it's in good hands. Because wouldn't that be the ultimate victory? As if all of a sudden, like, they do so much stuff where you actually watch Episode 9, you're like, oh, dude, I totally get it. Like, all of a sudden it makes it a good movie for you because you have backstory and stuff that doesn't seem like it's worth a damn. And then you go, oh, okay, well, now that's worth a damn.
That would be one hell of a leap.
Well,
but I guess we'll see.
I mean, dude, I'll use the example of Rogue One. It's a line in the crawl of Episode 4 where the rebels have scored their first victory over the Empire. They stole the Death Star plans and whatever. And we never thought anything about it. And yet now, can you imagine the Star Wars universe without Rogue One and the backstory?
That's a fair
and like,
point.
did that not flesh out like the Rebels, the Rebel Imperial thing, like unbelievably? It's like the story you never knew that you needed. And they've done that with so many other things.
Yeah, that was the big swing and a miss on Resistance, I think, because everyone was expecting connective tissue between 7 and 8, and instead it was like, no, it's happening at that time, but it's like right over here off screen. Like season 2 even picks up with them like going to the base on, what's I don't know, whatever, wherever the Resistance was holed up, in episode 7, and it got blown up in episode 8 right at the beginning, but they showed up like right after episode 8, so like nobody's there, and it's all like a smoking crater. Like, okay, so it kind of ties in, but it doesn't actually help anything about like what the New Republic is or anything else that we didn't know from the movies already.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like they need, I don't know, man. I feel like maybe there's another animated series in it to make 7, 8, 9, especially 8 to 9 make sense. Or maybe that's the comics are going to come in and save it. I don't know if live action can do it. They're not telling it. They're not telling anything in that time frame right now.
Yeah, but it's going to take a lot more than I think the next like 2 years. I think there's just going to be so much stuff that has to be brought up. The cloning thing has to be fleshed out. So that way, the whole, somehow Palpatine returned. We can sit there and go.
Kale.
Yeah, I was going to say we got talking about that. I was going to mention that too, but one of the few things I remember tonight. Thank you, Kale. But yeah,
you know when night falls on that planet, what they call it?
Oh God, here it comes. Okay, that wasn't that good. You could do better than that.
Well, neither was the movie, so
You're right. Right. But anyway, so before we get out of here, I do want to reiterate, the biography of George Lucas, and then Icons Unearthed, Star Wars on Amazon Prime. It's a 6-part documentary. Each episode's like 40 to 50 minutes long, so it's pretty in depth. But I really want to steer people to that because it's really been on my mind because you asked the perfect question at the beginning, like, do you learn new stuff? Because what I was going to mention about them was, you learn a lot of new stuff, and again, especially with that documentary, I never knew that Marshall Lucas was kind of like the glue that held the original trilogy stuff together in terms of story. So there's a lot of cool information there. The thing that's interesting about both of them is that you especially the book, they really paint George Lucas as kind of a prick. And it's like have you ever had that where I know you're probably not nearly as big into this as I am, but I'm huge into like biographies and learning about people and the behind the scenes and stuff like that. So I
love that stuff.
I listen to a ton of them. Even if I don't like the artist, I've listened to some of those. Like Marilyn Manson, I think he's awful, but I read his biography. It's pretty good. And you kind of get an idea of the person after getting through the totality of the work. And this one with George Lucas, you kind of come out of it like, you're kind of a dick. Like, it's and you never really thought of him that way before, and it's pretty interesting. So I would highly recommend it. There's tons of good information in there.
I'll give it a watch. I posted a link to it on Amazon in the chat for everybody.
Beautiful. Yeah, like
There's
again,
a book
it's called
too. I don't know if there's an audio book which you can get, for free on audibletrial.com/NHC, but
the biography,
Icons Unearthed Star Wars by Peter Holstrom. It's August 8th, 2023. So this is a pre-release. Okay, this is a brand new documentary, I guess.
Is it really? All 6
so
are
the
out
series
there?
came out in 2022, but the book of it is not due to come out until August.
Well, I didn't know there was a book, so now I'm going to have another damn audiobook. Sweet. Which means it's going to be longer and more in depth. That's very cool.
Let's see all formats and editions. Hardcover is the only one listed right now. No auto edition.
It'll happen. I have faith. It'll happen. But yeah, so that's really good, and the George Lucas biography was really, really good as well. Obviously, it goes through his entire life. It's not just Star Wars, but obviously that's the basis of things, and you learn a lot about American Graffiti and his relationship with Francis Ford Coppola and stuff that he produced and whatnot that you didn't know he had anything to do with. So it's cool, man. It was definitely a huge education dump for me over the last month, and I really enjoyed it. It was pretty cool. It's always cool to get new perspective on something that we have surrounded ourselves with for our entire lives, and we brought Van Halen as an example. Like, I can't find almost anything new about Van Halen. There's this guy has a long form documentary coming out on his YouTube channel about Van Halen, and pretty much the preeminent Van Halen author, his name is Greg Renoff. He signed off on it, like, oh, this is like the greatest Van Halen documentary. And I'm going into that going, okay, is this just going to be more of the same crap that I've already heard a million times when people just like think that no one's heard this stuff? Like, at some point you really need to do your research, and if it's in 3 books already, like, how about don't include that? So, but so
do it like
on that
comic
note,
book editor's note, like, this happened in so-and-so issue number whatever. Go look at that.
yeah, just do a compendium. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just do a damn compendium. So, all right. So since my computer decided to lag again, I'm gonna kill Spectrum. Fuck Spectrum. Seriously, fuck them. Fuck them hard. I hate them. This damn internet thing. I pay for this shit, and fuck you, Spectrum. Oh my god. Anyways,
JT's video feed brought to you by Real Players, circa 1999.
Right. So I'm still looking at my same face, just like sitting there doing nothing. Slow blink. There we go. Let's get that in there. But anyway, thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Nerf Herder Council. Don't forget, we are brought to you by Audible. Go to audibletrial.com/NHC for your 30-day trial and a free audiobook download, which obviously I'm recommending should be George Lucas A Life. You can get customizable Nerf Herder Council swag at shop.nerfherdercouncil.com. We will be right back here in 2 weeks on Wednesday, May 24th. And guys, if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to click the like button, click the subscribe button, hit that notification bell. And if you want audio versions of the podcast, so you don't have to look at my dumb face freezing like it has been for the last 60 seconds, because fuck you, Spectrum. Just Google Nerf Herder Council podcast, and we're pretty much anywhere you can think of to find your podcast. So till next time, I'm your host, JT at Dog Pound Jedi. He is AJ
At Drake Adams 579.
And we will catch you later. If it wouldn't freeze. If it wouldn't freeze.